Hello, Recruit, and welcome to Astroneer Academy 202 Advanced Resources. After 4 weeks of talking about flying around in space, it is rather nice to have our feet back on the ground again. In Astroneer Academy 103, we discussed all of the natural resources you can extract with your terrain tool and the refined resources that you can create by utilizing the smelting furnace. Since then, we have also discussed several vehicles, modules, and other items that require more advanced composite resources. Today, we are going to investigate how to create these composite resources using the chemistry lab and how to utilize the atmospheric condenser to obtain atmospheric resources that are required to create several of the composite resources. We will once again begin our discussion by referring to the Astropedia's resource section. The fourth tab provides a list of 12 composite resources you can create in the chemistry lab and includes a list of all resources required to create them. As you investigate this list, you will most likely notice that only a few composite resources require natural resources, with most of them requiring refined resources, if not other composite resources. You might also notice that nearly half of the composite resources require hydrazine at some point in their production chain. Since hydrazine requires ammonium, it's a good idea to secure a fairly large quantity of ammonium as early in your adventure as possible. Having the ammonium on hand to create hydrazine when it's needed will help you avoid needing to stop what you were planning and go hunt for ammonium. If you need help finding ammonium, please refer back to the Astroneer Academy 106 Quick Bite for collecting ammonium fast and easy. Whether you wish to create hydrazine or any of the other 11 composite resources, you will need a chemistry lab. The chemistry lab is unlocked in the research catalog for 1,600 bytes and is created on the medium printer from 1 ceramic, 1 glass, and 1 tungsten. That last resource, tungsten, is the reason why we waited until now to discuss composite resources and atmospheric resources. Both the chemistry lab and the atmospheric condenser require resources that you cannot obtain on Silva. It made more sense to us to discuss how to actually get to those other planets before introducing resources that require traveling there. The chemistry lab is a large Tier 3 object and must be placed on a platform or vehicle that features a Tier 3 or larger storage slot, and that platform or vehicle must be connected to your power network or other power producer. When active, it will consume power at a rate of 10 units per second. Since the chemistry lab requires tungsten, let's pause for a moment and turn our attention to completing the Talking Tungsten mission, which unlocked after you completed Smelteringly Hot in Astroneer Academy 103. If you consult the Astropedia, you will find that tungsten is created by refining wolframite in a smelter, and wolframite can be found in the mountains of Calidor and caves of Desolo. While this mission only requires you to collect 1 wolframite, I would suggest bringing along storage to gather more than that. Tungsten is used in the creation of 3 additional items and is also required to create tungsten carbide. Taking the time to gather as much wolframite as you can now will save you time later when you find that you need more tungsten. Once you have gathered wolframite, head back to your smelter and refine the wolframite into tungsten. As soon as the first tungsten is created, you will complete the Talking Tungsten mission, and you can claim your mission rewards of an unlocked schematic for both the medium generator and the floodlight. You also now have one of the resources required to create your chemistry lab. The other 2 are ceramic and glass, which come from smelting clay and quartz, respectively. Operating the chemistry lab is fairly straightforward. You can open its control panel by simply hovering the simulation cursor over it and using the Examine control input identified in the tooltip. The composite resource and its corresponding symbol will be shown to the right of the control panel's display, while the resources required to create the composite resource will be shown on the left. If a composite resource requires a gas, that gas will be shown as well. The chemistry lab can automatically pull the required resources from any storage attached to the platform holding the chemistry lab itself, and it can also pull resources from your backpack. That latter one can be a bit tricky though, as it will occasionally not recognize resources in your backpack. If that happens, simply close the chemistry lab control panel and reopen it, and it should recognize that you're carrying those resources. As you scroll through the list of composite resources, you will most likely see that the display indicates whether or not the required resources are currently available via storage or your backpack. When a resource is available, the resource icon is white. When a resource is not available, the resource icon is dark blue. You can use the blue arrow buttons at the bottom of the Chemistry Lab control panel to scroll through the list of composite resources, or you could simply use the left and right controls of your keyboard or controller. Once you have supplied the required resources, the large button to the bottom right will light up green. Simply click it once to open the cover over the button, and click a second time to begin creating the composite resource. The Chemistry Lab will retract its output tray, the doors will close, and it will begin producing the composite resource while sounding very similar to the engines of Doctor Who's TARDIS. And it will also produce a very satisfying ding when the composite resource is complete. If you have available storage on the same platform that the Chemistry Lab is attached to, the completed resource should automatically slot to that storage. If not, the completed composite resource will remain on the output tray waiting for you to remove it. If you wish to continuously produce the selected composite resource, you can utilize the repeater button located on the control panel. You may recall seeing this repeater button on printer control panels, and it functions pretty much exactly the same with the Chemistry Lab. Selecting it, then starting the Chemistry Lab via the green button will allow the Chemistry Lab to continuously produce the selected composite resource until it either exhausts the supply of required resources or it completely fills all available storage. As with nearly all production modules, the Chemistry Lab features a hologram of the resources required to create a composite resource. If you hover the simulation cursor over those holograms, the tooltip that appears will not only display the name and symbol of the required resources, but also tell you where you can obtain it, whether that be a specific planet or by processing a resource in the smelting furnace or Chemistry Lab. The hologram over to the right will appear for any composite resources that require a gas, and will also display the names of the planets on which those gases can be obtained. Now that you understand how to create composite resources, let's use your knowledge to complete another mission, Material Matters. This mission opened up earlier today when you completed Talking Tungsten. The Material Matters mission requires you to create rubber or plastic with the Chemistry Lab. Gather the resources required for whichever of those two composites you prefer. Personally, I typically create plastic as it can be used to create the atmospheric condenser that we will discuss in just a moment. Once you have created plastic or rubber in the Chemistry Lab, you can collect your mission reward of 1,000 bytes. There are a couple of other ways you can obtain composite resources as well. The first one will be a matter of exploration and a bit of luck. As we have discussed a few times in previous courses, you can often find resources in or on the debris that is scattered about all of the planets. On planets with a lower difficulty rating, which is displayed in the Astropedia, this will often include natural and refined resources. As the planet difficulty begins to ramp up, however, you will begin encountering composite resources and even gases in the debris. In addition to finding them in debris, you can also utilize the trade platform to obtain all 12 composite resources. That discussion will have to wait until Astroneer Academy 404, however, as we will not be investigating the item required for that trade until then. We will be discussing other functionality of the trade platform next week in an Astroneer Academy Extra. Since many of the composite resources will require an atmospheric resource, also known as a gas, to create them, let's turn our attention to those gases and the atmospheric condenser. You can unlock the atmospheric condenser in the research catalog for 2,200 bytes, and it is crafted from 1 plastic, 1 glass, and 1 iron. Glass is a refined resource created by smelting quartz, and you learned how to create plastic just a moment ago. Iron is refined from hematite, which means most likely you will be traveling back into space to obtain hematite from Glacio or Novus. I would once again encourage you to take along extra storage so you can obtain as much hematite as you can carry. If you choose Glacio to gather hematite, you can use that visit to gather titanite as well. And that's not a bad idea really, since you will need titanite for a mission that we will be completing next week. Once you have obtained all the necessary resources and created your atmospheric condenser, place it on a platform with at least 1 large Tier 3 storage slot and connect that platform to your power network. When in use, the atmospheric condenser will consume power at a rate of 20 units per second, making it the single most power-hungry item you can create. Select the Examine input to open the control panel on the atmospheric condenser. By now, control panels should be familiar to you. On this one, the name of the selected gas along with its symbol appears on the left 2/3 of the display, with the name and icon of the planet you are on over to the right third. You will notice that each gas will display a concentration, communicated as parts per unit or ppU. If the selected gas is not available on the planet you are currently located, this information will display insufficient concentration. You can scroll through the 6 gases the same way you would scroll through any list on other control panels. The big green button to the right will activate the atmospheric condenser, causing it to produce 1 full canister of gas. If you activate the repeater button, the atmospheric condenser will continue collecting the selected gas until you manually stop it or until all available attached storage is filled. If there is no available storage, you will need to remove the full gas canister from the output slot on the atmospheric condenser before it can resume gathering gas. Once the atmospheric condenser collects 1 full unit of gas, a small gas canister will automatically appear on the slot. If you look closely at the top of that small canister, you will discover it contains a 5-segment ring to indicate how much gas the canister is currently holding. The sides of the canister are also transparent, allowing you to see inside. This not only helps you quickly identify each gas by color, but also get a quick glimpse at how much gas remains in that canister. If there is a canister containing a different gas already occupying the output slot, you will not be able to turn on the atmospheric condenser until that canister is removed. There are a couple of different ways to avoid this entirely, however. If your atmospheric condenser is attached to a platform that also has available storage slots, each small gas canister will automatically relocate to a storage slot once the canister is full. Additionally, if you select a different gas than what is currently contained in a gas canister on the output slot, that canister will also relocate to any available storage. Likewise, if you have any partial canisters and begin collecting the gas contained in one of those partial canisters, the atmospheric condenser should automatically pull one of those partial canisters back to the output slot and fill it before it resumes creating new canisters. This doesn't always work as intended, however, though you can manually reattach a partial canister to the output slot as well. The From Thin Air mission will be completed once the atmospheric condenser has completely filled a small gas canister. You can open the mission log on any landing pad to claim your rewards of unlocking the schematic for the medium gas canister and receive one for free. If you do not unlock the medium gas canister via this mission, it will take 4,000 bytes to unlock it. You can craft it on the small printer from 1 silicone and 1 glass. Each medium gas canister can hold the equivalent of 32 full small gas canisters, providing storage for a total of 160 units of a single type of gas. Similar to the small gas canister, there is a ring around the top of the medium gas canister to indicate how much gas is stored inside. There are no segments on the medium gas canister, though you can hover the simulation cursor over the medium gas canister to find out exactly how many units of gas it contains. Each medium gas canister will display a resource symbol on its side to indicate which gas it contains, plus the side's transparent, so you will be able to visually identify the gas by color as well. That tooltip also provided a clue to the 2 modes you can cycle between for the medium gas canister. In input mode, the medium gas canister will collect 1 type of gas from any attached storage or from the atmospheric condenser. If the medium gas canister is completely empty, it will begin storing the first gas it finds available. If it already contains a gas, it will only store small canisters of the gas it already contains. A medium gas canister can only store 1 type of gas at a time. In output mode, the medium gas canister will fill and deposit small gas canisters to any available storage. It will also automatically supply gas to the gas input slot of the chemistry lab if the gas contained in the medium gas canister is the same one that the chemistry lab requires. As we discussed earlier, not every gas is available on every planet. If you consult the Atmospheric Resources tab of the Resources section of the Astropedia, you can easily identify which gases are available on which planets. The Astropedia does not include any information about the concentration of those gases, however, so we have put together this handy graphic. Nearly every gas has one planet where it is available at 100 ppU. The only exception to this is helium, which is only available on Aatrox with a meager 25 ppU concentration. But what do these concentrations really mean? Essentially, the concentration will impact how long it takes to collect gas. Assuming that your atmospheric condenser is fully powered, it will take 10 seconds to collect 1 unit of gas produced at 100 ppU. If the gas is collected at 75 ppU, it will take 13.33 seconds to collect 1 unit. Gas collected at 50 ppU requires 20 seconds per unit, and 25 ppU will require 40 seconds. That 40 seconds may not seem like a lot, but when you consider you need 5 units to completely fill a single small gas canister, you are now waiting over 3 minutes. Compare that to just 50 seconds for a gas at 100 ppU, and you quickly understand why it is important to try to collect gases on the planets of the highest concentration. To put a bit of punctuation on this, let's think in terms of medium gas canisters. At 100 ppU, it will take just under 27 minutes to completely fill a medium gas canister. At 25 ppU, you'll be waiting just under an hour and 47 minutes. Since gas collection can require time and patience, now is a good time to turn to a pro tip for setting up small outposts on other planets to collect gases. As soon as you are able, create an atmospheric condenser for each gas, along with a platform large enough to also hold at least 1 medium gas canister. Transport those, along with any solar, wind, or QTRTGs you can spare, to the planets where gases are available at 100 ppU. You will also want to take along a beacon for each gas outpost, so you can easily find and land at that location later. Once you have deployed your atmospheric condenser, medium gas canister, and a beacon, select the gas you wish to collect, turn on the repeater button, and then turn on the atmospheric condenser. Don't worry if you do not have enough power producers to fully power each and every atmospheric condenser. You are establishing these gas outposts to collect gases over time as you go about other tasks in your adventure. After a few hours, you should be able to return to these gas outposts and find that they've collected enough of each gas to help you create the composite resources you need. Before we move on to our final advanced resource, I want to encourage you to exercise caution when handling gases. Several of them will explode if they are within the blast radius of another explosion or if they are placed on the smelter. Specifically, hydrogen, sulfur, and methane are all explosive, as is the hydrazine you can create in the chemistry lab. You will definitely want to exercise caution around the smelter, as resources, including gases, will easily slot to the inputs on a smelter, leading to a rapid, unexpected disassembly of anything within the blast radius, including you. So take care when handling gases and hydrazine to ensure you don't accidentally blow up your base building modules or yourself. There is one final resource that is used in creating several advanced items, though it is collected through rather unique means. That is the EXO Chip. Each EXO Chip is a rare resource that can be found in EXO Caches, rarely in debris, and can be obtained via the trade platform. You will also receive numerous EXO Chips as rewards for various missions. If you choose to utilize an EXO Chip for research, each one will yield a total of 500 bytes at a research rate of 200 bytes per minute. Given the effort required to obtain each one, EXO Chips are better utilized in the nearly dozen items or the numerous missions that require them. Unlike all other resources, EXO Chips cannot be stored in a resource canister, which means you will need to utilize other storage methods that contain Tier 1 or larger storage slots. The most common method of obtaining EXO Chips is through EXO Caches. If you think back to the Astroneer Academy 106 Extra, you will recall that EXO Caches are one of many nav points that may appear on your compass. They will only appear when you are already somewhat near them, however, so it can be useful to know where to look to begin with. You can find EXO Caches on every planet, most commonly in the cave regions. They also appear in at least one surface region of every planet. On Silva, you'll want to look in the forest regions. They may be near the edge of the tree line or deep within the forest. On Desolo, you will most likely encounter EXO Caches on the Flats region. Since the flats are typically wide open spaces, EXO Caches located here may be the easiest to find. On Calidor, you will find them in the various mountains or in the flatter areas near the base of the mountains and occasionally in the dunes. EXO Caches on Visanya tend to appear in the rolling plains and near the base of the mountains. On Novus, you'll want to focus your search in the flats region. EXO Caches on Glacio tend to appear most frequently in the glaciers region, though you may encounter them in the ice plains as well. Finally, EXO Caches on Aatrox will most frequently appear in the dunes region. While this list is not meant to be exhaustive, it should give you a general idea for where you can find EXO Caches. Once you have located an EXO Cache, you will need to open it up. The EXO Cache itself is a large Tier 3 object. Each EXO Cache has a series of 4 lights on one side of their top and a red stripe that wraps around the entire object. At first glance, the lights would seem to indicate that some form of technology could be used to open an EXO Cache. This is not the case, however. Instead, EXO Caches can only be opened through brute force, namely by blowing them up. If you do not yet have dynamite available, don't worry, you will often find 1 or 2 dynamite in debris that will be relatively close to an EXO Cache. That brings us to a pair of pro tips for opening EXO Caches though. Instead of using dynamite to open a single EXO Cache, use it to open several at once. As long as the EXO Cache is within the blast radius, it will be destroyed. If you utilize packagers on an EXO Cache to store it as a smaller Tier 2 object, you can collect several and attach them to the storage on a vehicle. Once you have several, you can unpack them and place them close to each other, then attach a single dynamite to one of them. Activate the dynamite, take a step back, and watch as multiple EXO Caches are blasted apart. Each EXO Cache will yield between 1 and 3 EXO Chips. The remains of the EXO Cache can also be gathered up into debris bundles and shredded for scrap. We'll talk more about scrap in next week's Astroneer Academy Extra course. The blast of the dynamite may also leave behind resource nuggets, as explosions will typically remove any resources that were located within the blast radius. You'll also have a decent sized hole in the ground. Opening an EXO Cache will also complete the Cracking Caches mission, which will reward you with 3 EXO Chips. We have one additional pro tip for opening EXO Caches, brought to you by Raisins. You do not have to use dynamite to open an EXO Cache. Any explosion will do. While you certainly could use the blast radius of hydrogen exploding in your smelter, those aren't really the type of explosions we're nudging you toward. That isn't to say this pro tip isn't without risks. You know the cataplants on Glacio and the Attacti of Aatrox? They shoot explosive projectiles. If you can get your EXO Cache close enough, then use yourself as bait to get these offensive flora to fire at you, you can use those explosions to open your EXO Caches. Just be certain to neutralize the offensive flora of choice before you go in to retrieve your EXO Chips. Today, you have learned how to create composite resources, obtain atmospheric resources, and how you can retrieve EXO Chips from within EXO Caches. Next week in an Astroneer Academy Extra, we will investigate shredders, scrap, and using the trade platform to obtain useful resources and items, and, in a quick bite, explain how you can use a resource to obtain EXO Chips from the trade platform. 2 weeks from now, we will combine all this knowledge to complete numerous resource-related missions in yet another Astroneer Academy Extra. Until then, I'm Brandon, reminding you to keep looking to the stars.